Hello and welcome to the Empowered Couples Podcast, where you will learn to implement non-boring relationship skills so that you can become professional communicators, you can fight smarter, you will overcome challenges even faster, no matter what season or challenge you find yourself facing. And I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman.
And welcome to this episode. If you are a new listener, or if you've listened before, this will also apply. We used to have Empowered Couples guests, but now you're only going to hear from
us,
me and you. Why? Because we're going to take topics even deeper, and so you can implement them into your daily life. And so that means that all of the topics come from where?
From our community, from DMs that we receive or our sessions. And this week it was very prominent because in our sessions the last couple of weeks, a big topic has been about invalidating each other's feelings and all the sneaky ways that you do that. So that's what we're going to cover today, and then how to not invalidate. Because we noticed so many couples, both men and women, just feeling like, I feel like you invalidate me. I feel like you disregard how I'm feeling. You make what I'm feeling wrong. And so what we did was we took that main theme from our sessions and then we posted it both on Instagram and Facebook and received many submissions and DMs of all the things that you say feel invalidating to you. So things like this, because we asked, do you notice that you either are feeling invalidated by your partner or vice versa? Do you notice when you're invalidating your partner? And some of the things that we heard back from were, I feel invalidated when they laugh or change the subject. So it's like, you know what? They don't even talk about it. They just change the subject altogether. Some other messages we received were, they say I overreact. They say that I always respond this way. Or they also said it's when I react back to them. So this was an awesome person that said, I notice I'm invalidating my partner when I just react back to them. So here they are, they come to me with something that they're upset about. And then I go, well, you know what? And all this and this and this. And then now the attention comes on you. So sometimes people can take the attention. And then a couple other people said things like, oh, they always say it's not that big of a deal. You should just get over this. So those were a lot of the common responses. So right there, for those of you listening, check in. What does invalidating your partner sound like?
So what that means is we don't just come up with these episodes out of nowhere, where you listening can actually, message us. You can request what you want to hear about. And I think that's really special, especially for us, because we're providing topics and tips and actions for things that are actually making a difference for you in your life.
Yeah.
So that's where we come up with this from. And yes, let's dive further into this topic of invalidating, a partner's feelings. And I think one of the things I was taking away, sometimes we don't know that we're doing this to our partner.
Totally. Oh, it can seem so sneaky. And we're going to talk about a little bit more of how it's a defense mechanism and how it's a way of, almost guarding yourself. First thing I want you to realize by hearing this is you're not alone. And sometimes people will feel like they're invalidating each other's feelings and be like, there's something wrong with us, or there's something wrong with you, and maybe I'm not right with the right person, or you need to change. What I hope you realize from this podcast is you're not alone. This is extremely common. Now, it doesn't mean we want it to stick around, and we're going to give you some tools for how to not do this. But what we always hope from every episode is that you feel a little bit of like, whew, okay, it's not just us. There's not something wrong with us. So Aaron, my question to you is, we noticed from all of these responses that people felt invalidated, kind of summarized into two particular scenarios. Mm-hmm. What are those?
Yeah, so the causes, number one, I love noticing that invalidating of your partner's feelings, number one, is something that you might be doing. Because I think before we posted that, people wouldn't have been driving in their car saying, oh yeah, I know I just invalidated my partner's feelings and that's why we're in this disagreement. And so where it comes from is, look for your perspective first, right? Where it comes from is you saying to your partner that what they're feeling, what they're expressing to you, isn't logical or doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And then the second part would be that, you don't really care. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that seems strong, and by you not caring, what we're going to get into is, and I'm going to say this mostly for the men, when it seems like we don't care, it's because we're avoiding feeling that emotion with you, or we're avoiding feeling like we were at the cause, disappointing our partners. So in a sense, by this invalidating, we're saying, what you're saying doesn't make sense, so just deal with it, do it yourself. Or I subconsciously, what you're saying is, I don't really have the emotional capacity to be with this emotion. And so don't talk to me.
Well, you covered a lot there.
Take that somewhere else.
You covered a lot there. So can I dissect that with you a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So you hit on something, right? The two main places or when people feel invalidated is when they feel like they're saying it doesn't make sense. You know, it's basically illogical what you're saying. That's one scenario. And the second one being, I just kind of don't care that you're feeling that way. Figure it out yourself. For you mentioned men, and then you can ask me even a question about females if there are differences. With men, why do you think that it might seem like men don't care, or they kind of come off as like, just handle your emotions yourself? Like, where does that come from for men?
Well, a little bit like what I was starting to share is that we don't want to feel like we caused or we're responsible for or that we're being blamed for what you're experiencing. So in essence, it is a type of defense mechanism because we haven't really developed the ability to listen is the primary thing. To listen to the emotion and understand that that's something that you're experiencing. And as a partner, to support you in experiencing that and then understanding first and foremost. Because if we were to dive into that conversation with you, it's like we have to feel responsible as in it was our fault. And that's difficult to experience. And so the initial default reaction, that's not logical.
Right.
Why are you feeling that way? That doesn't make sense. How do you connect those two dots? Get over it. Handle yourself. So all of those things are like, is you can almost feel how that language pushes it back over onto the partner, primarily because we don't have the capacity or don't want to feel that right now.
Yeah, and I love so many things about what you're saying. And, for all of you listening, we don't love like generalities, like men are always this way or females are always this way, because yes, there are tendencies, but it's not always that way. However, we notice patterns. And with our couples recently that we were working with, it tended to be the female who felt the male was saying it was illogical. And here's the thing, men do think more from a logical standpoint. They think from like, does A lead to B? Or if females jump from A to C, they're like, how'd you make that correlation, right? And so number one, again, depersonalize it. That's how men listen often. For you, Aaron, you've undergone a big transformation over the years and I know we're still always ongoingly working through this, but you've gone through a big transformation of tapping into your feelings and your emotions. And so wouldn't you say that a big part of why people invalidate their partners is because they don't have emotional intelligence themselves?
Yeah, and by intelligence, I think it's just the ability to become aware of what I'm feeling, maybe label the emotion, I think is a benefit. Like, what is it I'm feeling? Why is it I'm feeling this way? What meaning am I giving to it? And then being okay with whatever the feeling is. Can I be sad? Okay. Can I be disappointed? And it's not avoiding feeling what we would call uncomfortable and try to say, I'm even going to have myself move on so I can be productive. I can take action. And it's really just, yes, an ability to feel more emotion, which, I had a conversation today that it's just so rigid. And he even said, women are emotional creatures.
That's what he said?
Yeah, that's what he said. Like that's just a fact. Well, human beings are emotional creatures. It's just that men mostly push that aspect to the side and rely more on logic and structure and moving forward. And I actually think women have been forced into that from a general society perspective. Be more logical, put your emotions to the side. We don't have time for that, especially like in business. And I think where we need to get back to is all human beings moving back to an emotionally intelligent, i.e. intuitive, i.e. creative, i.e. more open space to create and to feel emotions, because those really guide us into more evolved places.
Oh yeah, beautiful. I love that bigger picture of it being all human beings have feelings and we just have suppressed them. We haven't been taught how to feel them ourselves. let alone to feel our partner and to watch them have maybe an emotional reaction and not take it personally, which we're going to talk about more of that kind of ripple effect and what happens, that downward spiral. But just to hit on really quickly, why you two invalidate each other's feelings comes down to you weren't taught how to handle emotions. And so it is a protection mechanism, a defense mechanism for, I don't want to feel like I disappointed you, and so I'm going to say it's not valid, I don't agree, here's why your feeling doesn't make sense, or you should get over that. Again, just because as human beings, we weren't taught to embrace them, and we think that we shouldn't have them, and we should just feel better and move on, right?
Mm-hmm. I also would add, for men specifically, and I mean, think all human beings, again, in a partnership, don't point the finger at me saying what I did is having you feel that way.
True that.
So that's just the other aspect of it, right? Yes, there's like kind of invalidating them because we don't have the capacity to hold that emotion, but it's also like, don't blame me for what you're feeling in a sense, right? So I want to then take that to the next level. So we get like what invalidating feeling sounds like by a partner, what those two causes were. But now let's talk about from your perspective, when that's happening, when I say things like, that doesn't make sense. How are you feeling that? That's not what I said. That's not what I meant. Those things like that, which invalidate your feelings. Now, what's the impact of that?
I mean,
for you?
For me, the impact is just not feeling like partners, not feeling like it matters. And when I feel invalidated, which is, again, something we're ongoingly always discovering this, what it feels like is, oh, my feelings don't matter. I don't feel understood. And I don't know, it creates an energy block and I feel disconnected. Now, we catch it really fast, which is what you're going to hear a theme of our whole podcast is. Not that you're going to become perfect at all of this. It's how quickly can you catch it and then talk through it. But it's just really feeling invalidated is like it doesn't matter and get past it.
Yeah, let me ask a question. Would you go as far as saying if your feelings don't matter, which is what you just said, does that mean that you don't matter?
Ooh, wow, that's deep. I guess I haven't put that language to it to myself, but I have heard people say that. I've heard people say, well, it feels like I just don't matter that much to you. So perhaps that is like one of the foundational feelings that are there for people, because that's what we want. We want to matter to our partner. And part of mattering to our partner is having our feelings get acknowledged. And actually, it leads me to the next point, right? So if part of the cause is that we weren't taught as human beings and in our culture to handle and embrace emotions, why we invalidate each other. You hit on them a couple ways, but I want to make sure they're really clear. So it's a defense mechanism to do one of three things. And I'll have you elaborate a little bit more on these, but it's avoid feeling like you hurt or disappointed your partner. I want to ask you more about that because that's powerful. Second one, avoid feeling like you did something wrong. And third, to escape your own feelings. So I want to make sure those were really clear for people. Going back to the first one, you talked about it being a defense mechanism to not feel like you hurt or disappointed your partner. Tell me more about that.
It's not the conscious reason why people do this, why I would say that doesn't make sense. That's something for you to work on. That wasn't my intention. Get over it. You always do that. So that's another one, right? But it's underlying. So you have to go a level deeper. And it's, well, why would I say those things back? Or why do I then leave the room? Or why do I leave you to deal with it on your own? It's because a level under it is that, look, it's vulnerable for me to feel like I disappointed you. And that would be sad to me. Here I am, I took an action and it had you feel hurt. It had you feel disregarded. It had you feel undervalued, devalued, not that you don't matter. And if I have to look at that and own that I caused that, that's sad. Here you are, my partner. And obviously we're saying this for all the audience. When we say our own stories and examples, the point for the audience is to look for yourself, which I think naturally telling stories does that. But that's what I'm avoiding. I'm avoiding the level of sadness the level of disappointment in myself of causing those things to you. But that's not what the conscious part of it is. Most of the things that we do, actions we take, things we say to our partner are not really conscious.
Oh, yeah. We're not
They're
sitting
coming
there
from-
going, I'm going to invalidate my partner because I don't want to feel like I disappointed them.
Oh, yeah. I know I'm going to feel really sad here, but I'm going to invalidate them instead of doing that.
But you're right. It is unconscious. We do. It's almost like fight or flight. When you're in a fight or flight response, you're not choosing how you're reacting. It's just all of a sudden you're feeling like, oh my gosh, my partner's sharing emotions. I don't like that. I must have done something wrong. This is going to be my unconscious reaction. I wanted to share something. So when I've been doing work.
Well, I wanted to add one thing.
Okay.
Because I do like this one. Fight, flight, everyone knows that, but freeze. Fight, flight, or freeze. And I say that because we talked about emotional triggers on the last one. I typically go to the freeze. Like, I don't fight, meaning I don't get assertive. I don't, lash back. I don't, that's fight, flight. I don't just leave anymore, right? I know there are guys that will just leave the room, go for a drive, go for a walk. I'm pretty much the freeze person. So I just say nothing, mostly, right? Like a very very reactive place. So I just wanted to add that. So fight, flight, or freeze is also another possible one, just because I know you probably experience me probably being in the more freeze area.
Yeah, good point. I like that. So yeah, going back to what I was going to say, when I'm in those moments, one of the things I've really had to work through is when you're sharing emotion that does feel like it's something I contributed to. You know, it's like, hey, when you did this, I felt this. Now, I know we work on our language a lot. That's something we've talked about throughout multiple podcast episodes about how to say things where it's not pointing the finger, it's not attacking, but sharing from an I perspective. When I hear you saying that, I really have to catch my brain and go, I don't need to invalidate his experience. I don't need to defend myself. He's just sharing emotion, and that's okay, even if I was a part of it. And that's really taken me slowing down and realizing that I may have done something that quote unquote disappointed you. You know, okay, I said something that hurt you, disappointed you. I don't need to now go on defense and go, I did something wrong, so I'm going to make you wrong. Right, justify. It's just, oh, wow, okay, how I said that, what I said, that had an impact on you.
Yeah, it's hard to own that. I think that's one of the biggest things. It's just it's hard to own those places, which may lead us into the second reason why we do this.
Well, I think I think we've covered the reasons we do it mostly. Is there any more reason that you think? Okay, yeah, I think we covered really it being a defense mechanism. We don't really have the emotional awareness. We weren't taught about it, and we're avoiding hurting our partner or feeling like we disappointed them. Now, just to cover a couple more ways that you can invalidate, trying to fix it. This was one we got multiple messages was I feel invalidated when they totally step over my feelings and they just try to fix it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. You could talk about it too if you had something you wanted to say.
Well, I noticed that we, again, talk to a lot of couples and they say they will totally step over acknowledging what I'm feeling and instead go to, fine, I just won't do that next time. Or fine, I'll just go do this. And they're like, okay, thanks for the solution, but you didn't say, hey, I understand that made you sad. Or, hey, I understand you're feeling mad right now. And that, I think, is a big one. I think it's sneaky, but it's trying to just fix it, stepping over the feeling.
It just made me think of this because we today, and I will say to all the audience members, it's like, where do we get this stuff? Is this just things we picked up other places? It's like, no, we actually experience these things. So when we ask for questions from you, the audience, to submit questions and topics, we really end up experiencing that week. And I think that we share from such a authentic place because I'll go back to today. We sat outside in the morning. We actually woke up earlier today at 5 a.m. and ended up sitting outside for an hour sharing what we each were experiencing. And it took a moment for us each to share, for each of us to listen, understand the feeling. Then it's then I got a chance to go. Then we both feel understood. Then we start to share okay, well, what's next? But to your point, why fixing? Number one, I think it's because it seems too slow sometimes. You feel like you're, in a sense, wasting time. We need to get to the action. We need to find a solution. Let's move forward. And
I got a to-do list. I got to get on with my day.
Absolutely, yeah. If you have kids, if you have roles and responsibilities, if you have work, we do live in a society and in a modern marriage where we're supposed to be in action, and activity is how we feel achievement.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really not where fulfillment actually comes from. So it feels like it's slow. And I think I'm saying that because I'm getting that today. I thought to myself, we've been out here for an hour. I woke up at 5. We could have walked the dog. We could have got to the gym. We had new Allbirds shoes. Shout out to Allbirds. New shoes to wear at the gym. I could have got to like my reading that morning. So there was a thought where I was like, this is taking too long. It shouldn't be taking this long. Let's get to the solution and move on. But if the goal of the relationship is to become more connected and more understanding, it's those moments. It is those moments. You don't get more connected. You don't learn more about each other from the actions that you're going to take. But that's why I think we say, what's the action? Let's move on. This is taking too long. So you have to shift the mindset. Having this conversation, sharing the emotions, not invalidating one another, we will learn more about each other and be more connected. That's what the belief needs to be. And in which case, whatever time it's going to take is going to be great. That this isn't too slow.
Oh, I love that. I love that you hit on how we do live in such a fast-paced world that it's like, I got to get to the dishes here. Can you?
Yeah.
You're come on, get over your feelings because I gotta get to work, you know. And of course, you have to have the right time to talk about things. It's not that, oh, you need to derail your whole day or get late to work or, you know, miss a client. It's not about that. Of course, you want to have this in the right timing.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for you then.
Sure.
Because I don't want it to feel so gender specific.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sharing because that's how I experience it,
Yeah.
and I happen to be a male or in the masculine, whichever one you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you want to fix and move on?
For me, not as much fix it. The big thing that comes up for me is like I need to defend myself. Like if I get into a place of invalidating you, it's not so much about time and getting past it. For me, it's more like I need to defend myself because, and this would be a little bit longer of a conversation, but growing up as a child, the last thing I wanted to do was disappoint my parents. And I didn't want to make them mad and upset and I had this correlation between making them upset / disappointed means they'll love me less, even unconsciously, right? A lot of this is not, oh, I'm thinking about how they won't love me as much. And so in our relationship, I have to catch myself not wanting to say your reality doesn't make sense because that would mean I disappoint you and I don't want to disappoint you because maybe that would have you love me less. And again, it's like I almost have this out-of-body experience where I'm sitting with you, I'm listening to your feelings and emotions, and I can either react back and invalidate you, or I go, this is what I've been working on a lot the last couple of weeks, even outside of our relationship, friends, social media, is people will share something with me and just being like, I got it. That's how you feel. Okay, I don't need to defend myself. I don't need to be worried I disappointed you. That's your human experience right now. Hear you. It is so hard. It's not easy, right?
No, it's not. Yeah. I really get it.
Yeah. So for me, that's what comes up a lot. And then the third piece.
Because just last thing. So I'm now getting the world of like our interactions. So if you can invalidate what I'm saying and what I'm feeling, then that means that you didn't disappoint.
Right.
So it's almost like in the subconscious, let me invalidate what he's saying. So that I can basically prove back to myself that I didn't have anything to do with disappointing them. Okay, wow, yeah.
Yeah, it's totally a protection mechanism for the ego. We could talk a whole world of the ego, but just to go in, because we covered like two of the sneaky ways. The trying to fix it, get to the solution, the trying to minimize it because we don't want, them being disappointed to mean we did something wrong. And then another one that people said was, my partner will give me a pep talk as a way of invalidating, like, oh, instead of validating the feeling, the emotion, go, oh, it could be worse. It's not, come on, considering everything going on, it's not that big of a deal. So the pep talk is a sneaky way that people felt invalidated by their partner. So I think we covered quite a bit of like why invalidating shows up.
Well, I want to add one thing to that.
Sure.
Pep talk or coaching your partner.
Yeah.
Now, the coaching piece is typically for people that have undergone their personal development journey or started. they now have some tips and tools. So you feel like in a position to start to coach and share these places where they could be doing things better. So when I saw some of the other comments about like the pep talk, I also related to the coaching piece. You know better than that. You learned a skill. You should be implementing, like for us to be like active listening. You should be first listening to understand before being understood. So think to yourself, if you're using Instagram hashtags or quotes to your partner, that's probably more in like the coaching space.
Or the
and
pep
that's,
talk.
The intent there is positive to help your partner remember things maybe that can move them past, but at the same time, it is invalidating the feeling still. And that's really the topic of this. So coaching your partner around what they should be doing or what they're doing wrong, or that they know better principles, is still invalidating and still goes back to some of the reasons that we already covered.
I'm glad you elaborated on that, because that was a big theme with one of the sessions last week. Of course, we always keep names private, but in particular, he had done more personal development than her. And so he took it upon himself every time she was having an emotion to say, hey, your emotion doesn't need to be there, because you could actually implement this tool and this tool and this tool and this tool. And she's like, okay, I'm wanting to be on board with self-development, but I don't want to be on board if it means none of my emotions mean anything, or I can't feel any of them. So I love that you brought that up. So catch yourself if you are going to your partner and giving them a coaching or a tool or a pep talk, and not first validating their feeling. And when you validate their feeling first, and then you ask, hey, if you feel understood now, could I share a tool, or could I share a perspective? And they say yes, then you can share some feedback.
And that's actually where I was at as an audience member. I'm like, oh, I can picture myself in all these different situations. So now what do? Right? I have these sneaky ways in which I invalidate my partner, or that my partner is in a sense invalidating me. Again, we're not looking for this to be like a blame place. But now, how do I essentially stop from doing this?
Yeah.
And by stopping, it's the benefit of, well, how do I end up understanding, being more connected? As we talked about, the point of all this podcast is to fight smarter, to become communication pros, to resolve conflicts faster. So what would I do now?
Well, the first thing that came to mind was, you've got to slow down. If you want to work on not invalidating each other, your communications need to slow down. I think that people respond way too fast.
React even?
Yeah, react. Absolutely. It's more unconscious. So slow down. When your partner's sharing a feeling, count to 3 and go 1, 2, 3. And in that time, go, how can I validate their feeling? It's going to take conscious effort to first validate their emotion. So slow down is the first thing I would say. And then we always talk about repeat back to them what you're hearing. You have to consciously choose not to take it personally, and to realize that it's okay if that's their human experience. So repeat back to them, hey, what I'm hearing is you're really mad because I, talk to you this way, or because I didn't do this. Now, it doesn't mean you're taking the blame. And this is not about that, because when you validate your partner's perspective, they likely will go, okay, I'm sorry for putting it on you, right? So I'd say slow down, repeat back to them what you're hearing. What other tools would you add?
I just remembered that we should do one on blame.
Another
because
podcast.
That's an aspect, right? It's how do I validate? How do I listen? How do I understand? How do I say I'm sorry? How do I repair? Might be the best way.
Yeah.
How do I repair without taking on all the blame?
Yep.
And I know that's one of the things actually in our relationship assessment that says, when you have conflicts, do you feel like you're the one at fault?
Yeah.
And I see a lot of couples they agree to that statement. So actually it might be an opportunity just to pause, since I already mentioned it.
Yeah.
Doing the relationship assessment. And right now, if you feel like you're in a season where you're really wanting to take your communication to the next level, have an actual exercise to understand and listen to each other so that you can validate that what your partner is saying is true. Right now we'll do, I'm just going to put this out there, half off on the Recorded Couples Workshop.
Okay.
It's the Recorded Couples Workshop we also call Home Edition.
Yes.
So we've done over 42 live events.
Yep.
We've done the Couples Workshop here in Arizona every month until the quarantine happened. So to keep on providing that for anyone around the world, basically, we recorded that in a Tonight Show-like studio.
Yeah, very professional.
Did it, live with people. They were on there interacting, chatting, and we recorded that, and we're making that half-day recorded couples workshop available. Yeah. So right now I want to do half off of that.
I love that.
And if you came in person, it'd be $300 for the day with us. You come with your partner. Normally, the recorded one would be $150. Let's do it for $80.
I'm in. I love that.
Do it for $80. You can click in the show notes.
Yeah.
There's also a URL.
Thecouplesexperience.com. So the couples with an S experience.com. And I think even till the end of June, we could give that 50% off. I love that.
Yeah, totally.
And that'll take you much deeper into these communication principles, your triggers. You even create a couple's vision statement. What do you want beyond quarantine? What's your vision for this next stage of life? Because life's changed now, right? There's no back to normal.
Exactly.
So what's your new vision as a couple for your life? And yeah, more communication, more emotional awareness. I love that. Okay, so go to thecouplesexperience.com. So with that said now.
Yeah, I'll go back to the third piece. It is realizing, and you have to get this, that yes, there's like universal truths, but there are personal truths. There are personal realities, and everyone has a different one. Your partner, whatever they're experiencing now, is real. It's a reality for them. To not look at it as that's not a reality. You shouldn't be feeling that way. It's not logical. Get over it. Right now, that is your partner's reality. And there is nothing else. Whatever your partner is experiencing is your reality. And it's the same for you. Whatever you're feeling right now is your reality. There is nothing else.
Yeah.
So to realize that you both will always have your own personal reality.
I love that.
And there'll be times where your personal realities seem to be aligned mostly, and
other times they conflict.
You're connected, but I mean, even that, you always see things slightly different.
Yeah.
Like we've done this before, where your physical vision, you can never actually physically see the world the same way because you can't ever see it at the same angle, right, with your eyes. But even more so, your reality from your perception, your paradigm, your experience is shaped by how you see things.
Yeah.
Meaning the meaning you give things, your past experiences, your past filters, your past hurts and pains are all going to sort of color how you're experiencing things. So that is to say, if you could take that piece away, what you're experiencing is real for you. What your partner is experiencing is real for them. So just don't invalidate that because it is. That's real for them. It doesn't mean that it can't change in the next 15 seconds. But right now, this moment is inevitable.
Woo.
And this moment here, right now, is real for both of you.
I love that. Okay, good. So even just to recap, what you can do to lessen or even eliminate invalidating each other is slow down on your responses. If your partner is sharing something, don't respond or react right away, because then you might say something you don't mean or that is invalidating. So count to 3, slow down, then repeat back to them what you're hearing. Hey, what I'm hearing you say is, or hey, what it seems like you're feeling is. Or you could say things like, tell me more about that. And that comes from the perspective you added as the third point, is realizing that is their reality. And you just want to honor that. It doesn't mean you did something wrong. It doesn't mean you need to defend yourself. That is their human experience. That is their reality right now. So get interested in it. Acknowledge it. And then from there, when you both feel understood, then comes solution time. Then comes, okay, here's what we could do differently next time, or here's what I'll do differently, or anything. The solution comes after that. So I think that really is like, whoa. You could listen to that again and study that. Don't step over this. Like, don't go, oh, that was a nice podcast. Listen to that. Good point. We shared some things that aren't easy. It takes being very intentional to slow down, very intentional to honor their reality. So I maybe even listen to this a second time if you'd like. So just to close it out.
Hit that back 30 seconds maybe a couple of times.
Exactly.
Re-listen.
So just to close it out, I'm really grateful that we recorded this podcast today. I know this is always something we're ongoingly practicing. And for those of you who listen, and again, if you're newer, we come from the standpoint of this is all practice. There is no perfect place. You become this perfect couple. When you are alive in this modern day world, it's ongoing practice. So we're alongside with you in this journey, and we love to hear from you. So connect with us, send us a DM. What are your questions? Like Aaron said earlier, what do you want us to cover on the podcast? Or if you even want to work with us more closely, send us a DM. If you're like, hey, how do we do a session with you two? Or hey, what's that link again for the recorded couples workshop? We love to hear from you. And I think we meant to mention this earlier, but we do a drawing every single month. And next week, we're doing a drawing for all of this month's podcast reviews. So please make a podcast review if you enjoyed this. It helps us reach more people. The platforms love to base things off of reviews. So please write a review. We also include those in the drawing, but we also include any Insta story shares. So if you share our podcast on your Insta stories, we record that. If you send a message requesting a topic, we put that in as well. So enter the drawing. We're going to do it next week. And I just really loved this episode. Any final notes from you?
No, that sounds great. I just want to share one more time for the couples listening that might be saying, oh, these principles are for me. I want to implement to strengthen and grow our relationship. Well, there's another aspect to this. There's your contribution to other couples, right? So you can share these principles. Certainly you want it to be from you implementing and your experience of it. But another way you can implement couples that you don't even know, literally, is by reviewing. And if you don't like this podcast and you don't get good things, by all means, do not review it. But if you get value, review it, 5-star review, because that helps this podcast get more into the awareness of couples. And by doing that, you actually contribute to the principles getting into the lives of other couples. And in that case, you're also contributing to the whole, the global of relationships really thriving and being more connected.
I love that. Well, everyone, let us know what you take away from today's episode, and we will talk to you on the next one, where we'll be answering your next questions. Much love to you all.